Last week, we spoke about behaviors that tell you very quickly, if not immediately, whether a man is serious about dating and looking for a long-term relationship. Today, building on that, I will walk you through behaviors, signals, and red flags that allow you to see a man's intentions. Whether he wants to build a relationship, he's there for a casual arrangement, or maybe he has no real intention despite what his profile might be saying. With men, the number one rule when it comes to dating is that it's always about actions, never about the words. So today we will be decoding men's behaviors on dating apps that show you their intention immediately. Let's get into it. If you're new here, my name's Laura Nagyel. I'm a dating and confidence coach for high achieving women and the author of the Dream Framework, the first and only dating coaching program with a 6-month results guarantee. I have helped over 100 women find the one within weeks and months, and I would love for your story to be next. Let's go. The first behavior that would make me cautious is when a man disappears for a few days and then comes back as if nothing happened. And if you have been dating for more than a couple of weeks, I'm sure you have experienced at least a handful of men suddenly breaking up the conversation. So you're talking, the conversation's flowing. It's not even that it came to an awkward halt. It's literally flowing well, everything is as normal, and then all of a sudden they just go silent. And then a few days later, they will text you as if nothing happened and say something basic like, hey, how's your week going? Hey, any cool plans for the weekend? I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And the reason why this behavior is on the list and it's number one is because it poses a clear question. If you don't have the time to get back to me for days, how much of a priority is dating for you right now? Or how much of a priority is pursuing me for you right now? And I know that our ego would rather not face the fact that just like we have a pool of options, so do men. And sometimes we end up being just that, an option. We are not the main pursuit. And that's okay. And I know it stings a little bit more when it comes from someone who is the main person for you, but this could be a good thing in the long run if you allow yourself to receive the message that his lack of message is the message that he is either not that focused on dating right now, or he does not prioritize pursuing you. In either case, this is not someone you should be prioritizing. This is not someone who you should have as your main person. This is not someone you should be hoping for things to work out with. Now, the reason why this behavior is number one on today's list is because what we often forget is that just because we are clear on our intention towards someone does not mean that they are clear on their intentions towards us. That's one. And number two, just because we are clear on our intention towards someone doesn't mean their intention towards us is the same. And that is something that is so key to remember when you come across someone that you really like and he ticks many of your boxes, and that makes you just so much more forgiving because you want to give it a proper chance. You know that men like this don't come around very often, so you're more forgiving. You're maybe looking for excuses to understand why he's not been in touch and why he's gone so silent. But this is the rude awakening nobody likes, and I'm gonna deliver it to you. If he is not talking to you, it means he has better things to do. Because even if work is extremely busy, typing a message takes a few seconds. If something bad happened, I don't know how bad that thing would have to be for him not to have the space to reach out to you within a few days and just to let you know that he needs some time. Especially that if he comes back and talks to you as if nothing happened, that's the best proof that he doesn't see anything wrong with it, which again takes us back to the point about priorities. If he comes back after a few days and he asks you a simple question such as how's your week going, and he does not mention anything about being absent for the last few days. He doesn't explain why. It shows that in his head, everything is fine, and indeed, nothing happened. So that's a very clear sign to you as to what his intention is. For him, everything's okay because this is where you belong in his head. That's the label you have. Occasional chats, a backup plan for whatever this means. Either a backup plan if I want to meet with someone, or a backup plan if the main woman I'm pursuing does not work out. So if he is inconsistent, I know you might not want to hear it because, again, I know why we accept this behavior from men. So, whatever the case is, if this inconsistency is coming from a man you really like, or if it's coming from a man you are maybe trying to give a chance to, the only answer is that you don't do it. That you don't entertain men who are not 100% sure that they want to pursue you and potentially be with you. Because if that rejection, failure later down the line comes from a man that you really like, then you will obviously have your feelings hurt and be let down, which it's fine, it's part of the dating process, but here you are exposing yourself to that experience unnecessarily because the signs are already there and they usually come up very, very early on. And then in the alternative case where you're trying to give a guy a chance because you want to be less picky or whatever, if that's not working out, even though you accept his inconsistency and maybe other things that he does, think of the hit your self-esteem will take. Not only did you compromise on what you wanted in a partner, you also compromised on certain behaviors, and it still didn't work out. So it's obviously going to feel like a failure on your end, that even though you compromised on so many things, he still didn't want you. Where in reality, his intention could have never been to be in a serious relationship at the moment. So even if you were Miss Universe, even if you were the smartest, most beautiful woman alive, he was just not in the headspace to think of a relationship. So if anything, all of that hurt is coming from your own decisions and of trying to make a man who is not interested in a serious relationship, again, we're talking about actions, not words. It comes from your own decisions to entertain that man, as difficult as it is to hear. And I know that it's so much easier to blame the dating pool and the dating apps and social media, but a lot of the hurt, a lot of the negative experiences that we have in dating is not because of the men we come across, but because of how we interact with those men. And allowing inconsistency, entertaining inconsistency, is something that we as women do to ourselves. And we bring on ourselves the outcomes of that behavior. Because the thing is, if a man is interested, if he is intentional about dating, if he really truly is on the apps to find a relationship, you will not have to wonder when he's gonna text you next. You will not have to analyze his messages or try to structure yours in a way that makes it so easy for him to get back to you so that you can keep the conversation going. What you need to remember is you don't want to get in your own way by allowing men who are not consistent block the space in your life, in your headspace, in your heart, for the men who actually are intentional and who will be consistent with you. Because consistency is not just about texting regularly, it's also about letting someone know they're not going to be available. I understand life happens, work is busy, we have plans, we have trips. I get all of that. When I say consistency, I don't mean texting. I don't even mean texting every day, to be honest. This is about knowing when the next message is going to come. If we are very busy, if I'm very busy, he's very busy, maybe we're both traveling or somebody is traveling for work, which is a completely different way of traveling, right? It's a lot busier. Even if your routine is checking once a day or maybe every other day, but a longer message, that's fine. Being consistent does not mean being on your phone all the time. It just means I don't have to wonder if I'm gonna hear back from him. I don't have to wonder why he's so quiet all of a sudden. So I'm definitely not going to give you an artificial boundary for you to set around communication, because just like with many other types of boundaries, this is just so personal. It depends on your lifestyle, it depends on your personal needs and your communication style. But the point that is universal, the rule that is universal across all people and all different cases, is that it needs to feel good to you. If a person you just met is not aligned with you in terms of how they communicate, and disappearing all of a sudden definitely falls into that category, don't try and fix it with someone you've either never met or only met once or twice. This is not the stage to do that. Your only task at that stage is to assess the initial compatibility. And if someone is not invested in this connection enough to want to get to know you consistently, then they're out. Because real interest and intention will always show up as consistent effort and not just occasional attention. That's reserved for women from the option category, and you're not there. You never want to be there. Now, this next behavior is one that many women add a completely different meaning than what it actually is. Something that always makes me more alert is when a man tries to take the conversation off the dating app right away, whether that's Instagram or WhatsApp. I think these are the main two, unless you're speaking to children, maybe then they will suggest Snapchat. Whenever a man you literally barely match and he already tries to exchange numbers because it's easier to chat on there, massive red flag. Because what's so difficult about using a dating app? If you're serious about dating, please don't tell me that clicking on an app is too much of an effort for you. Accessing WhatsApp or Instagram or Hinge or whatever other app you're using takes exactly the same amount of effort. So I don't buy that at all. And there are only two reasons that I can think of and that I've seen in my professional experience, personal as well, actually, as to why men want to get off the app. One, more innocent, is that they don't want you to have the option to unmatch them so quickly, which actually I take that innocent back. It's just because the second one is worse, but actually it's not innocent at all, because he just wants to be able to nag you, to nag his way into dating you, which is not very sexy to say the least, and just doesn't feel safe, right? So one factor is safety. You don't want to give your personal information to someone you don't know, you've never met, and you don't know how they will behave in case something goes wrong. Another reason, one that I see way more often, is that when men try to get your number, take the conversation off the dating app, is because they want to talk about things that are not allowed on the dating app. They might try and ask you for your pictures, not necessarily in clothes. They might try and send you pictures of themselves, not necessarily in clothes, or to make the conversation sexual, which in all cases, these are behaviors that are not allowed on dating apps. This can get you banned. And the thing is, the modern dating apps are very efficient when it comes to banning people and making it difficult for them to come back. So, because this is quite a well-known fact at this point, people are cautious, men are cautious, and this is why they're trying to take the conversation away from the dating app. But I don't want you to buy this BS about chatting on the dating app being easier. This is something I would have understood 5 years ago, maybe more, when apps didn't have all the functionalities that they do now. But on Hinge, for example, you can send pictures, you can send voice notes, you can video chat, you can just have an audio call. So And you can text message, of course. So, what exactly is missing that we need to switch to WhatsApp? And even taking the safety factor aside, just from a practical point of view, do you really want to have a whole graveyard of saved numbers of connections that never went anywhere? Because that's part of the dating process, right? If you just match with someone, you don't even know if you're going to meet them in real life. So, why would you have their number saved? Why would you then have a whole phone book full of numbers that you're never going to text or use again? Actually, in a few years' time, you might even know who they belong to. Because again, you don't even know these men well enough to know their last name. So if you experience men trying to be inappropriate on Instagram, for example, I feel like we all experience that in one way or another. Don't make your experience even worse by enabling men you meet on dating apps to do the same. Dating apps offer protection that Instagram, WhatsApp, or any other communicator won't. Why would you take that away from yourself? Why would you give that up for someone you essentially cannot trust because you haven't met them? You don't know them at all. Now, there are, of course, a few cases where it does make sense to exchange numbers. For example, if you are planning to meet, and when I say planning to meet, I don't mean saying let's hang out sometime. I mean there is a date, there is a place, there is a time, there is a specific intention around it. So if all of that is agreed, it might make sense for you to exchange numbers because although unlikely, you might have trouble with your internet connection, in which case you cannot use the dating app, so it's easier to call a number. Or if you've been chatting for a while, let's say you're traveling at the moment, or he's traveling at the moment, and it's not possible to meet right away, but you want to keep talking, the conversation's flowing very well, and you just don't want to risk something happens in the app, a bug or whatever. You don't want to risk that that match disappears. Sure, that's fine. But again, notice the difference. This is not a guy you just matched with. This is someone you've spoken to for a while. Some initial trust has been built. And because you've had these conversations and they were interesting and they were appropriate, the likelihood of them turning around and becoming inappropriate all of a sudden or creepy or dangerous are much, much lower. So, as you know, I am a big opponent of artificial deadlines, timelines, and boundaries. So, it's going to be the same here. I am not going to tell you if you've spoken to a guy for 3 days, a week, or a month, it's okay to exchange numbers. It just needs to feel right for you because it all depends on the intensity and the length of messages and what you talk about. So essentially, my guidance, my direction is that if it feels right, if you feel safe enough to do that, do give him your number. But if it feels wrong, if you can feel in your gut, and intuition is such a powerful tool for us women, we don't use it enough because we function in a world that really prioritizes and appreciates the masculine logical way of thinking, which there's nothing wrong with it. There are many perks to that, and the best thing is to have a hybrid. But very often we end up using logic to strangle our intuition, our strongest tool. So if you feel in your gut or wherever else, if you just have a feeling it's too soon, if you are not sure about his intention, if it doesn't feel like a natural next step, don't do it. Don't do it just out of obligation. Don't do it just because he asked. Don't do it just because it feels awkward to say no, because it doesn't have to be awkward. If you tell him with confidence in a very casual tone, again, it doesn't have to be a big announcement, that the dating app you're using right now has all the functionalities that you guys need at the moment, so you can exchange your numbers later, that's fine. That's another test for him to see how accepting he will be of your boundaries. Another response you might give is that at the moment, since you're just chatting, being here on the app is fine. And once you have the details set for your date, then you can exchange numbers, which, without spelling it out directly, will make it very clear to him that you are intentional. You are not here to waste time. But notice how different this is from saying directly, I am not here to waste my time. Please either ask me out or don't, which is what some women do, which is the last thing I would recommend. I find that to be very off-putting. So delivering your message with confidence will show him that you're intentional, you have boundaries, and that will be a great test in itself of his own intentions and how respectful he will be now and later if you do date. Because a man that is truly interested in you, not your body, will have no problem having a conversation through an app first. And speaking of sexual conversations, behavior number 3 is exactly that, making the conversation sexual very early on. That's the type of behavior that would make me unmatch someone immediately. It's not even about trying to reconsider or trying to understand their motives better. The situation here is extremely clear. Their intention is not to build a long-term relationship. Their intention is to find a casual arrangement or a one-night stand. So if this is something that you're looking for as well, or okay with having as you look for the one, go for it. But if you don't want the wrong person to occupy your headspace, this is definitely someone to unmatch or block immediately. Why? Because there is nothing good that can come out of early sexual escalation. Yes, sexual chemistry is very important in most romantic relationships, and it's very difficult to build a lasting relationship if that chemistry and sexual spark is not there. With that being said, if you take it the other way around, if you try and build a lasting relationship on sexual attraction alone, this is a recipe for disaster. And this is very often a mistake that people make when they meet in person, when they meet in the wild, because this is when that chemistry has an opportunity to happen, and very often we mistake sexual chemistry for actual long-term compatibility. And because you might have experienced that type of spark and strong sexual attraction in the past with someone, you might think to yourself, maybe he's looking for that too. Maybe he's just like me. Maybe he's very temperamental. Maybe he wants to know that we get on in that area as well. But the problem is, even if you did have that experience in the past, you are listening to this episode or watching it right now, which means you are single, which means that that relationship built on passion only did not survive. And no wonder, because passion and sexual attraction is just one of the building blocks for a long-term relationship. And even if you want it to be easygoing, even if you wanted to go with this direction that he chooses, the sexual escalation that he imposes early on, if you follow that, if you allow the hormones to kick in, so as women, after we have sex with a man, we bond. Oxytocin is released and we bond. Oxytocin is a hormone that is released during birth, for example, so that we can bond with our baby, so we want to protect it. And a similar thing happens, obviously on a much smaller scale, when we have sex with a man. Oxytocin is released so that we can bond with our partner, who potentially is the father of our children. So if you allow that bond to happen before you check for any other factors, any other compatibility, you are risking that you will be so blinded by this physical connection, by this sexual compatibility, that you will spend a year or two, maybe 3 if you're lucky, just building the relationship on that alone. But then after that spark dies down a little bit, and it always will, this is when you start seeing the actual gaps in compatibility and how different really you guys are. And that's because when we look at the cycle of long-term relationships, passion is the immature stage of a relationship that lasts between a year to 3 years. But after that, it's not something that can hold the relationship together anymore if there are no other factors cementing that compatibility. And this is why it's so important to establish that foundation of compatibility first before you go to bed with someone. Men don't operate like us. They don't release oxytocin the moment they sleep with someone. They don't feel closer to the woman they just slept with. So for them, even if they were just explorers for the best possible partner for a long-term relationship, which, spoiler alert, 99% of them are not, that type of exploration doesn't serve us women the way it serves men. So what I'm saying is, even if you want it to be easygoing, even if you agree with the man you just started talking to that yes, that sexual element is very important, and I don't want to portray it like it's just men who have needs, like it's just men who need good sex. We all need it. But starting with sex as a woman, it's just not going to serve you. It's going to make you blind to certain behaviors. And that's the last thing that you want. That was the most optimistic scenario in which both you and the guy are looking for a relationship. And the worst thing that happens is that you spend a few years together having this amazing passion, but then it fizzles out and then you guys break up. In most cases, however, the reason why men are looking to make the conversation sexual is because they are looking for something casual. They are looking for easy and fast access to sex. And I feel like I've said it a number of times this episode, but I'll say it again. Always look at a man's actions, not his words, because even if his profile says, I'm looking for something long-term, I want to have kids, I want to get married, maybe he does want all these things, but maybe he doesn't want them with you, because the behavior he is showing by trying to make it sexual right out the gate doesn't show that he respects you, doesn't show that he cares about who you are, not just your body. And so if he doesn't have interest in that, if he doesn't want to get to know you on that level, what does that tell you about his intentions? If a guy whose profile can be all aligned with family values and tradition and being ready to get married, and his age would also suggest that, if he is making the conversation sexual still, don't be fooled. Save your time and unmatch him right out of the gate. Women often feel pressured to keep that conversation going because they don't want to seem uptight, they don't want to seem like they have no chill, but being chill has never landed anyone in a relationship of their dreams. Having boundaries and self-respect, though, absolutely did. So what you want is a man who is clear about his intentions, not just on paper, not just on his dating profile, but also in everything that he does. And a man who is genuinely looking for a long-term relationship and who is genuinely interested in you will want to know everything about you. Not if you're compatible in the bedroom only, but also if your aspirations for the future are aligned, what your lifestyle is like. If your lifestyles are compatible, he will want to know if there's intellectual connection, if your sense of humor works, what are your dietary requirements? Because again, that's a big part of the lifestyle. So there are so many factors that determine compatibility, and to be honest, sex is one of the things that is probably the easiest to work on or amend when you look on a global scale of the habits that we have and routines and worldviews and political affiliations. There are so many things that people are just not willing to budge on because this is all about their point of view. Whereas if you love someone, if you truly love someone, even if there are some imperfections or areas that need work, you will happily do that for the person you love. Whereas if your values are clashing, you will never be able to make it work. Doesn't matter how good the sex is. So with that, there is no other boundary that I recommend setting than unmatching men who are being inappropriate straight away. You will not fix him, you will not change his attitude towards you. If he sees you as a one-night stand, or if he sees you as a casual connection, it will be very difficult, next to impossible, for you to change that label for him. And do you really want to spend so much time and effort on someone who just doesn't appreciate you? So if he prioritizes getting to know your body instead of getting to know your mind, for me, that's an instant block. Because early sexualization is always, always, always about short-term interest rather than something long-term. Now, I have 3 more behaviors that reveal a man's intention extremely quick, and I will be covering them in next week's episode. So if you found this one helpful, make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss it. See you then.